Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. It's another Daily Spawn episode. We're up to number 22. Monday, January 10th, 2022. 30 years of Spawn. This is the 30th anniversary. It did come out much later in the year. But yeah, 30 years of Spawn. So for the year of the Spawn, we're celebrating by Rocky and I are trying to read all of the main series. Little leeway, little cushion, because by the time we get toward the end of the year, there'll be between 330, 340 episodes out, 365 days in the year. We got a little cushion. Haven't missed one yet, and I gotta say, it's been fun because these issues really do hold up much better than I thought they would. But at the same time, and I've done daily before, it's a commitment for sure. So we saw on yesterday's show, we did Spawn number 21, where Todd McFarlane returned to writing and penciling duties. So we have the same thing in the credits here for part 2 of The Hunt from Spawn 22. Story and art by Todd McFarlane, letters by Tom Warzakowski, colors by Steve Oliff. And we talked a little bit when we did the review of 21 about how bringing McFarlane back on was a bit of a catch-up, right? Like he'd had 5-issue break, right? Grant Morrison was there with Capullo, and then we had the Tom Warzakowski issues that Capullo also drew, but keeping in mind they actually came out after 21 did in terms of release. But still, it was a big break for McFarlane. So when he jumped back on, it really felt like a bit of a catch-up. Like, hey, what's Sam and Twitch up to? What's Spawn up to? What are the Mob up to? What's going on with Terry Fitzgerald and his problems? So there's multiple storylines going on in this Hunt arc that he's doing, and that we saw that last issue, Hunt Part 1, and that continues in the Hunt Part 2. So, but that to me, and I don't know if I mentioned this on yesterday's show, but that to me, it made it feel like a little bit jumbled. Not that the transitions were terrible when it jumped around from storyline to storyline, but it's a lot of storylines for somebody like McFarlane, who's doesn't have the best writing chops. As much as I love the guy, he's definitely a great businessman, an entrepreneur, and a terrific artist. But from what I know of Todd, the thing he's least talented, his least natural ability, I'll say, is as a writer. But I did feel like that got better here in part 2 of The Hunt with issue 2022, or issue 22 rather. I don't know. It just felt like the pacing flowed a bit better, even though he still covered all those same kind of storylines. What do you think, Rocky?
I'm going to disagree with you a bit. I actually thought I was a little bit irritated here. I thought the exposition, I thought the exposition got really, really heavy here. And,
That's fair.
But I mean, again, you could still, it's almost as if, in the previous issues we've reviewed, McFarlane has allowed other writers to come on board to write the story and build a mythology of Spawn for him in what is it 7 or 8 previous issues. It's almost as if McFarlane came back and he felt he had to make up for it, and he forgot it's almost like he has to remind us readers everything that he wrote and everything that came before, but he doesn't have to do that. Like we've been along for the ride. And what we said before, it's okay if you review things for new readers, but I mean, there's a couple of scenes here, and maybe we'll cheat a bit and show some of the dialogue, because I know that we normally block it out, but wow, there's a couple of pages here where there is a massive amount of exposition that was truly, in my view, wholly unnecessary. And so it's a little bit surprising to me. And again, there's still a good story here. We're still getting substance in addition to the excess of exposition. So it's not necessary, but at the same time, I'm still enjoying this story because McFarlane knows the direction. I get a strong sense he knows where he wants to take this story, but boy, he's definitely afraid to let his own art tell the story. And I haven't read a lot of McFarlane's modern day writing. If in fact he does a lot of it, I don't know. But we'll see how things play out as we review more issues of Spawn. If his exposition becomes less and less.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to trust the art, and at some point, you wonder if the fact that McFarlane is writing and drawing this, if that actually hurts him. If he was just writing, maybe the exposition's not as heavy. Or I know a lot of writers that I've interviewed. They'll talk about the fact that they write a script, they have a certain amount of captions and dialogue boxes and exposition boxes, whatever you want to call them, and then they send the script to the artist. The artist writes everything down, and then or draws everything rather, and they send it back, and then they go back through and they say, okay, of this script, now what can I remove, because my words with what's shown in that panel are now redundant. I don't need to tell them because the artist is showing them. So they go in and they remove things, right? So you wonder if I don't know if, like you said, if McFarlane's writing still to these days, if he would go back and remove stuff, or if it went the other way. And we saw that where we had one issue, and I can't remember which issue it was. Maybe it was the Dave Sim issue where McFarlane did the art but didn't write it, and we talked about how it felt like it was some of the better art from McFarlane up to that point. And I know that I wondered if it was because he didn't have to write it. Also, he could just focus on the art. So, but you're right. This is a heavily expositional issue, and I've actually read the next two, and I think it's 24. Just wait. I know you haven't seen it yet, Rocky, but just wait till you see the first page. If you think this is expositional,
Well,
I
I've
mean,
read 23 already, and there's a couple. It's like, holy moly! It's like one page. It might as well have been a page from a novel. It's like,
yeah,
this is supposed to be a comic.
yeah, yeah. I feel like what do you? Oh, maybe it is 23. The opening page where he recaps all the,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah,
happened in
that's it.
23. I hope it doesn't
Yeah,
happen
23.
again in
Yeah,
24. But
yeah. No,
thanks
no,
for the
no. It
warning.
doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. 23 is the one I was looking for. Yeah, yeah. You wonder. It's like maybe Spawn should have been an illustrated novel rather than a comic. But anyway, let's talk about what actually happens in 22. Um, so we meet somebody named Joe Sakic. Sasic, I think it's Joe Sakic, and basically he's an accountant for the mob, and he's going through and talking about getting the books right for, and I think this is the first time we hear Vito Gravano referred to as Tony Twist. We've talked about the Tony Twist lawsuit before, and it's kind of strange. Like, I don't know why. I mean, bad enough McFarlane got sued and uh, had to pay $5 million. So the settlement was actually $15 million. I don't know if we mentioned that, or the I'm sorry, the judgment was $15 million, and there was appeal, and they eventually settled it for $5 million. But still, that's a ridiculous amount of money. And I'm not saying that McFarlane was right or wrong or whatever. I'm just saying that's a ridiculous amount of money. But it's strange that was calling him Vito Gravano or Vito Graves or Dracula, Don Dracula. They called him at one point. Now Tony Twist. It's like, man, how many names are you going to give this
Yeah,
guy?
Anthony Twistelli is another
Yeah,
one. Like, I mean,
yeah,
just settle on a name already. I mean,
yeah. You should have stopped while you were ahead because you would have saved yourself $5 million.
I got a
But
question for you,
anyway,
Chase. I got a just
yeah,
question. Did they actually change the name? Did they actually retroactively remove Tony Twist's name from some of the issues because of the lawsuit,
I
or not?
don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. But what I did see regarding the lawsuit, just to go on another quick tangent here. Apparently, the lawsuit took place in St. Louis. I guess that's where Tony Twist was playing for the St. Louis Blues at the time,
Yeah,
where he filed suit. Um, and apparently, one of the lawyers for Tony Twist, like their law firm had a bunch of the the evidence still, like a complete run of Spawn. I think they said from issue like 1 to 172,
yeah.
and um, like
And a
some
poster board that
a poster board. Yeah,
McFarlane drew on during the
Drew.
trial. Yeah.
Yeah, that he drew. McFarlane drew while he was sitting in the witness stand. Like, yeah, and I don't know if it didn't say, the article I read didn't say if the comic shop had to buy him or what have you, or if the guys just brought it over. But Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
some of those issues, as we know, we've talked about, are pretty hard to find, low print run. But yeah, it was pretty funny. Um, so anyway, Joe Sakic, he's the accountant for Tony Twist. We'll use the forbidden name, of Tony Twist organization, and works long hours and is devoted. And somehow Spawn has tracked him down, and he shows up there, says, "Hello, Joe. I want to talk. I want to know where your boss is. The fat man, he's been asking about me, and I thought I'd answer his call." And credit to Joe here, he tries to play it off at first. He's like, he's gone. He's checking on business matter. And Spawn's like, really? That's not really that convincing. So while he's roughing Joe up and trying to get some answers, the guards come in, and this is actually a really cool scene. So a couple of mob guys, and they've got Uzis, some kind of submachine guns, and they fire at Spawn. And I do like, because as Rocky had mentioned, McFarlane seems like sometimes he forgets what the other guys have added. When I say other guys, the other writers, and some of the things they've added have been really cool, right? Uh, and we talked about how 21 came out after 19 and 20, and we also saw in 19 where Harry Houdini had showed Spawn that, hey, a costume has a mind of its own, it has its own power. You can use it to protect yourself and to even go on the attack and help create objects and do all this kind of stuff, so you don't have to use your own power. So McFarlane seems to remember that here, or he knows that the costume is that way, and uses that aspect of it himself. But the fact these guys are firing hundreds of bullets from these automatic weapons, and the change is kind of mind of its own, deflects all of them. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was a great scene. And
Beautifully illustrated. Yes.
yeah, it's fantastic. And then McFarlane tries to be a little clever here as the guns run out of ammo and start clicking instead of firing, and we get the one guy says up and the other guy says oh, and they realize they're in trouble, and it's like, hey, mob guys meet desk, and we just see the remnants of a couple of blood spatters on the walls. So yeah, I mean, say what you will about McFarlane, like I said, in terms of the thing he has the least natural ability, maybe writing, but the guy can tell a story visually. Like, there's not much in the way of words on this page as the machine guns run empty. The guys get the worried look on their face. Death smashes them. Blood spatters on the wall. Like, I mean, there you go, Todd. That's. There's no need for anything more. You need to learn to do that a little more often. So, meanwhile, Joe has gone and grabbed some information, trying to save his neck. Basically, again, you don't blame him. He gives it to Spawn, and Spawn leaves. And as he's flipping through it, he goes, "Man, Terry's on this file. Like, somehow, some way, between Jason Wynn's organization, Tony Twist's organization, there's some suspicion that Terry is actually Spawn." So the scene then shifts, and this is a really strange scene for me visually. Like, I totally understand what McFarlane's trying to do, and we've seen it in different movies and TV shows over the years, where you're zoomed in on something so close that you don't even realize what it is, and then the camera slowly zooms out, and your brain registers what it is, and it can be interesting. I don't know that it works that well with static images in a comic, because you sort of can't focus. I mean, maybe digitally it would if it was panel by panel, but you sort of already realize that it's a fly when you're looking at the pattern, sort of the pink and bluish, just based on the fact that your brain and your eyes take in the whole page at the same time.
Yeah.
So I give him credit for trying.
But I just want to add, though, that what's funny, though, is that it's not just a fly. It's a fly that's on a donut with pink glazed dressing being eaten by Sam. I mean, it's a very weird visual. Like, like it's just the oddest thing. I mean, really trying to ram the point home that, are you trying to convey the image that Sam, even though Sam's a good guy, he's a disgusting fat detective? Like, it just seems like a very weird association. And like like visually, like you said, it's an interesting visual, but I mean, it's just kind of an odd choice to make. But again, I mean, kudos to him, because as you said, it's definitely, you take notice of it. You definitely take notice of it. I just think it's kind of wasted on a scene with Sam eating a pink glazed donut.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that McFarlane was trying to be, and again, this would work better in a movie or TV show if you did this. Like, oh my God, that guy. I mean, Sam doesn't realize there's a fly on his donut as he goes to take a bite out of it, and so if you did this in a movie or TV show and the fly was on the part of the donut they're just about to take a bite of, you would think, oh my God, he's about to eat a fly. Oh my God, that's so gross. That's what
Yeah,
you would think. But at the
yeah,
last moment, the fly flies off, and that's what happens here. And Sam doesn't eat it. But again, I think that works better in live action as opposed to in a comic. But regardless, it's Sam, it's Twitch, and they're talking, with their usual back and forth sort of banter, and they're getting given a bad time by one of the other detectives there. They call him the Ren and Stimpy of New York's finest, chasing ghosts and blah blah blah, and it doesn't really seem to serve a purpose because we don't really learn anything other than the fact that the sort of homeless guy, I think he might have been living in his car, the drug dealer that they roughed up last issue, Jimmy, has come through and um, or and given them some information. But other than that, we don't really learn much, and we don't even learn what the information is. Now, the next page I think is the page that Rocky was talking about in this particular issue, where this might as well, like, this is an illustrated novel at this point. This is prose at this point. This is not the most detailed piece of art. Not that it needs to be; it serves its purpose, but it's just a wall of text.
yeah.
And maybe it's necessary. There is a lot of information here. Some of it is very repetitive. Like, we already know this is Jason Wynn. If you've been following along, he was missing for 2 days. You know that the government doesn't trust him anymore. Like, this is all stuff that we know. Again, there's not a whole lot here that we learn. It's all sort of just a reminder. And we're reminded about the Spawn stealing the ordinance. We're reminded that Terry Fitzgerald's investigation came back clean, but Wynn's going to pin everything on him anyway. So, yeah, I mean, not only is it a giant wall of text, it's all sort of repetitive and in a way unnecessary. So, it can be frustrating.
Yeah, and it and
Yeah.
it goes out of its way to sort of tell people, yeah, this is guy that Jason Wynn. He's just as he's akin to it, like Herbert Hoover, or pardon me, J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI, and the comparisons, and it's really trying to prop up Jason Wynn, and it goes out of its way to try to explain the fact that he's been trying to blame Terry Fitzgerald for the security breach at the neglected upstate armory, where there was missing ordnances and weapons that Spawn ultimately ended up using to defeat Overt-Kill. And we kind of all know that, but this is just like, this was completely unnecessary. It really was unnecessary. And the central mystery here was, it's still, we've gotten no farther. We never got into the mind of Jason Wynn. We still don't know why he was returned, from the Angel satellite, because he was anti-Spawn. There's no mention of that, and it's surprisingly frustrating. And then to all this, to the point that at the end of the exposition, the point is that says, they say these are the reputation and power. These are the building blocks of madness. Well, I guess, but yeah, but is Jason Wynn? Well, I guess we know he's power hungry, but how much does this point have to be rammed home already? It's like, to me, this was a wasted page. We didn't need this.
Yeah, I agree. Again, great for somebody who doesn't know what's been going on. Great to bring them up to speed. But for somebody who's been reading, yeah, we know all this. And in a way, by being constantly reminded of it, it brings kind of the lack of verisimilitude to it,
Yeah.
because we're being constantly reminded that Wynn was missing for 2 days. His government doesn't trust him, but yet he's one of the most powerful guys in the intelligence arm of the U.S. So you got to think, okay, well, until you get some answers, why is he allowed to be in charge still?
Yeah.
You
And
know,
how
you're
smart can he be? How smart can he be if he can't If I mean, a strange way of putting it, but how smart is he, or how intelligent is he really, if he can't even frame a guy like Terry Fitzgerald, who literally has done nothing? Jerry Fitzgerald has literally done nothing. He hasn't actually actively done anything to impact any of the central narratives. He's just been sort of a guy who's loving his wife Wanda and commenting occasionally about Spawn, or I mean, or about his pal Al. And so it's the oddest thing. It's like, per Terry Fitzgerald, he's being set up. And the odd thing is that everyone who's investigating him is finding him innocent. Even Jason Wynn's own men keep finding no evidence against him, and yet they keep going and threatening him, but yet can't find anything against him. It's the oddest thing. You would think that in a massive organization that Jason Wynn, if he controls the entire U.S. government intelligence operations, you'd think he'd find an easier scapegoat than Terry Fitzgerald, a guy who's squeaky clean. You tell me you can't find somebody else who's not squeaky clean?
Yeah,
So that, like I said,
criminal, criminal, foreign operative, something.
Something.
We are told in the next page though. They've turned on one of their own. The accusation comes from so high up it's going unchallenged. Meanwhile, concrete evidence is being manufactured to answer anyone's questions. So he obviously is planting evidence. We don't know exactly what, but yeah, I mean, these are supposed to be. We're also constantly told that he's head of the U.S. Security Agency, which is the highest level of government or what have you. Only answers to the president and the Joint Chiefs. So I got to think in order to work for him, you got to be pretty competent. So if it's manufactured evidence, the investigators aren't good enough to realize it's manufactured evidence. So again, like, harping on these points brings into the fact that there's some plot holes here. So he needs to stop bringing it up constantly. But anyway, Terry's at his desk. He's writing a report for what happened in issues 19 and 20. Why he has to write it in Russian, he complains about. Like, why would you be writing a report for a field report for something to happen and then have to put it in Russian? That doesn't make any sense either.
That makes no sense. I guess to make it easier for Russian spies to read it when they steal it. I mean,
exactly. So as he's doing that, there's a scream from the outer office. It's his secretary. Somebody has very subtly sent him a box with a rat in it that has a knife stabbed through a note into the rat's belly. It says, "Dear Fitzy, you're a dead rat." And the secretary's like, "What does it mean? Can you read? What do you think it means?" They think he's a rat. And he's like, "No, Julia, don't worry. I'll take care of it." Blah, blah, blah. Like, man, you are one dumb lady. Like, what does it mean? It says right on the note what it means. Like, this is not subtle. It's a dead rat. It says, "Fitzy, dear Fitzy, you're a dead rat." Like, another just head scratcher.
Yeah.
But anyway, and at this point, Terry again begins to feel scared, it says. For the first time since the threats began, Terry's feeling scared. Really? Is this what it took? A dead rat? Dude, somebody's got it in for you. Yeah. Maybe you're not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Maybe you can, use the knife that stabbed the rat. But
yeah, he's a snowflake.
He's slow on the uptake here, Terry. Yeah. I'm sorry. But again, very, very typical McFarlane panel there for showing somebody surprised, zoomed in on the eye. Yeah. That's very wide open. So then we see Spawn, who is reading the report or reading the files that he got from Joe Sakic, the accountant of Tony Twist, in an alley. He's sitting on a throne. And I want to point something out here. Again, heavily text page here. And we're told that his buddies, somewhat in homage of him as their dark protector, have built him this throne of waste and debris, which is fine. I think it's a little weird that they're, in a way, treating Spawn like he's the king or whatever. But the thing I want to point out, it says, it was assembled by the homeless now under his protection. His first instinct was to scoff at their handiwork, but what else could they have built to support his 400-pound mass? Spawn weighs 400 pounds? Yeah, like, I get that it's not his earthly body. We've been told that it's psychoplasm. Psychoplasm must be very dense and much heavier than human flesh, because even though it's not a real human body, like, we know he has a heart and, bones and whatnot, because we've seen that at various times in this series so far. So because his mind knows what a human body is, technically supposed to look like inside and be assembled, what the parts are and whatever, that his own mind has created this psychoplasm body to resemble a human body, even though it doesn't actually need his heart, as we saw when the Violator took it. But he weighs 400 pounds. And I also get like, okay, so add in some weight for the chains, I guess, and the spikes. But the costume itself, does it have a lot of weight? It doesn't seem to. I mean, when he jumps around, the cape goes flowing everywhere, has sort of mind of its own. But yeah, 400 pounds. I never would have
Yeah.
guessed. And why is it important? Like, why did McFarlane even go out of his way to point out that Spawn weighs 400
Well,
pounds? I
what's
just thought it was
funny?
strange.
Yeah, it is strange, and it also is. If I chuckle even more when I realize how much exposition we've gotten in these 22 issues, we're only finding this out now.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the times, I mean, you would have thought somewhere near the beginning, if when he was first became Spawn and woke up, you think that it made some offhand comment about his weight. Again, it's a minor point. It's a nitpick, but like you said, I mean, you brought it up, and I noticed that too. It was like, geez, 400 pounds. That's quite. I would assume it would have to be. I'm just guessing it would be the cape. I would think, because I view this cape as being so magical and everything else, especially the way almost like Houdini sort of described it. And like I said, we don't know how much psychoplasm weighs. So you never know. Maybe if
Yeah.
psychoplasm, it creates something, it has an additive weight to it factor. But it's interesting.
Yeah, that's all I can think is it's got to be really dense stuff. But 400 pounds, I mean, that's a lot. And I know the cape is big, but again, it flows around like it's not that heavy. But regardless, Spawn apparently weighs 400 pounds. He might want to lay off the Twinkies. And we are told that he's grateful for the throne, but he's very uncomfortable with their devotion. But he considers them family and yada yada. So then the scene shifts back to Tony Twist and the scientists he has working for him. We know that he lured Overt-Kill away from the mafia back in Italy to come and kill Spawn, and Spawn used the 2 ion cannons and took him out. But what we find out here, and it was mentioned last issue that Overt-Kill was still around, we find out that Tony Twist apparently had the body moved to this secret laboratory to be repaired, and the scientist is talking about, there's a few problems. We weren't able to completely wipe his old memories and whatnot.
Right.
And Tony Twist is like, I'm not really concerned about his memory. I just need him to go tonight. And we get a full page splash with Tony Twist's usual grin that says, the other invite to I'm having a party basically. And the other person should be getting their invite to the party right now.
Yeah.
So by party, he means, sending Overt-Kill out to take care of business. And again, he thinks because of information he's obtained from either directly from Jason Wynn, at this point we don't know, or he's got a mole in his organization or just through contacts or whatever, that he thinks that Spawn is responsible. First of all, Tony Twist thinks that Spawn's responsible for all the deaths that were actually the Violator stealing people's hearts way back in the first few issues. And again, because of Wynn probably wanting Terry Fitzgerald to be the scapegoat and to be removed from the playing field, Tony Twist thinks that Terry Fitzgerald is Spawn. So we see Fitzgerald after getting the dead rat delivering his office. He ran home. He was worried about his wife and daughter when he got there. Then he remembered, oh yeah, this is the day that they go over to see Grandma Blake. So they're not even there, which technically Grandma Blake is not even... no, wait. I guess it is. Amanda or Wanda's grandmother. For some reason, I was thinking it was Al's grandmother. But Al's really close to her and went and visited her when previous issues and found out Wanda still loves him. So anyway, as Terry is sitting there, he peeks out his window. He sees the guys that are watching him, and it says 2 CIA people here, but in the next issue, they refer to him as FBI agents. So I'm not sure which agency.
Yeah, it would have to be the FBI. I don't think it's surprising. I don't think McFarlane, I mean, I'm sure McFarlane knows, but the CIA is it's illegal for them to operate within the United States, so it would have to be the FBI.
Yeah,
but
so this is probably a mistake that didn't get caught that they corrected in the next issue. But anyway, it's like they're parked right out front. It's obvious. They want him to know he's being watched, and so as they're sitting there and as Terry's watching, two mob guys pull up, and this is the invite that Tony Twister was just talking about, right? Overt-Kill needs to be in a certain alley at a certain time, and they want to be sure uh, that Terry Fitzgerald is there as well. So the two FBI agents, like, wait, what the hell's going on? Is these two mob guys they don't even look around. They just pull up to the house behind another car and just jump out with these automatic weapons, like not the sharpest tools in the shed. So
Uh,
then what happens? Of course, Buddha, 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 brap, 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 as these two guys are exchanging gunfire. So Terry, in his infinite wisdom, decides, well, I got to get in the middle of this, right? And he comes out of the house with a gun. Like, why wouldn't you just sneak out the back door and let these guys shoot it out? But he's like, get out of here, just leave. And they both, they're more worried about Terry than they are each other. These guys don't really know. The mob guys don't know the FBI guys and vice versa. They're just following orders, but they know that Terry Fitzgerald is, a problem. So all four of them, both pairs, turn their guns on Terry, and he ends up having to duck for cover, which then allows the mob guys to take out the FBI guys. They yell, "Hey, Fitzgerald, we got your wife and girl. If you ever want to see him again, be at this alley at a certain time, and you better be alone." Now, then we get a couple of other big exposition boxes here that say, actually, what's happened is Grandma Blake and Wanda and Cyan are at the park. And if Terry's thinking that, hey, I can go and rescue them, and goes to Grandma Blake's house, he'll find it empty. And then he'll assume that these mob guys were telling the truth. Again, kind of unnecessary. It doesn't really, like, why didn't McFarlane just have them actually kidnapped, or use just say, hey, if you don't show up, we'll find them and kill them. I don't know. Again, it seems a little clunky, and it's also
yeah,
something that would not work at all in the day of, like, nowadays, modern times. Terry would just pick up the phone and call
yeah,
her cell
exactly.
phone, and be like, so anyway, uh,
Doesn't quite
Terry
work for
runs.
me to believe
Yeah,
that she's at the park with the kids while he's being shot at the house. It just,
yeah,
it lacks a little bit of that wonderful V word verisimilitude, as I
yeah,
love to say. But I guess we'll go with it. There's a lot of action here to enjoy and great art.
yeah. Fantastic art, but again, it just feels a little clumsy. And Terry knows he should stay there because he's got two dead FBI agents on his lawn, but obviously he's worried about his wife and daughter, and he's under all this pressure, and he knows, I mean, it doesn't look good for him, so he does what a lot of people would do, I think, and he runs. So meanwhile, we're told hours later, Spawn's chilling on his throne. One of his buddies shows up. Al, hey Al, he's coming for you. He says to be over, and he gives him the same address. And Spawn's thinking, oh, so the files were correct, right? um, Overt-Kill is coming, and Terry is there because the guy says, you better hurry because some black dude in a suit is in his sights. And that's when Spawn realizes that the black dude in the suit's Terry. Obviously, he wants to save his friend. He knows that Tony Twist thinks that Terry Fitzgerald is Spawn. So everything's starting to come to a head, as it were. And the guy even mentions Overkill by saying, I don't know who he is, but that guy's as big as a bus. And before Spawn just goes running off, he goes, thanks for the warning. I got a little help tucked away. And by that, he means the ion cannons that he used to take him out in the first time. So the scene then shifts to the alley where Terry Fitzgerald's hiding out. It doesn't take long for Overkill to find him. And as soon as Terry Fitzgerald sees him, he says, Wanda Cian, I love you, because he knows his number's probably up. I don't know. The way McFarlane draws it, Overkill's probably 4 or 5 times bigger, at least, than
Yeah.
Terry Fitzgerald. So back in the alley, Spawn is digging through trash. Apparently, he hid the ion cannons under every piece of rotten, disgusting piece of garbage he could to discourage people to go look for it. But he's got to hurry because Overkill's there, Terry is there, and he's got to find these cannons, these ion cannons. And as he's looking, all of a sudden we see the barrel of a very large gun uh, pushed up against his temple, and we see a voice say, "Don't move!" And it's Twitch, Detective Twitch, who's found him, with Sam right behind saying, "Great work, Twitch." And we're shown Spawn's current power level, which is 7864. And I could have sworn in a previous issue it was already down to 6, but regardless, I'm probably wrong. 7864 here, and the issue ends with a picture of Overkill with one of those trademark McFarlane grins, um, because time once again has become an enemy to Spawn and to his friends. So
Yeah.
Overkill threatening Terry, Twitch with a gun to Spawn's head. We don't know where Wanda and Sienna are. We're told they're at the park. I guess we'll see next issue. But yeah, that not again. Other than the gunfight between the two detectives, there's actually not much action here. Well, I guess Spawn takes out the two mafia guards right at the beginning, which is kind of fun. But again, we got a lot of setup last issue, a little more setup this issue. Last two issues of the arc are a lot of action. So I didn't mind this issue. Like I said, I felt like maybe because some of these threads, these four separate story threads start to come together, I felt like it wasn't so disparate as the uh, first issue of the arc. Um, but there's still a ton of exposition and just those little weird things like we talked about, like the fly and Spawn weighing 400 pounds and the mob guys bluffing Terry Fitzgerald, basically saying, "Yeah, we got your wife and daughter," when they really don't.
Well,
Just yeah,
well,
some
not only
things are
that,
just weird.
the story. I mean, the central part of this story is Spawn finds out of all places. Since when would a mafia like would Jason Wynn provide information to his accountant about Terry Fitz about like Spawn finds out through looking at the accountant, at material provided from the accountant, that Vito thinks that Terry is Spawn. Well, why would that be in an accountant's book or manual? Like, I'm not. That's why I don't quite understand why Jason Wynn was using, his accountant is privy to all this information. Just like conveniently in a lot of these issues, the media, the amount of leaks that seems to come out of Jason Wynn's office, and even even the mafia's information seems to leak to the media. Whoever the leak is at the mobster and in the intelligence agencies. I mean, good Lord, we think there's enough leaks right now in present day America. It's got nothing on the Spawn issues here. But as you said, I mean, I can go with it. But it is kind of interesting that we almost didn't need Spawn to break into the accountant's office at the beginning, because he would have ended up finding out about Overkill coming back anyway and attacking
Yeah,
a black man, because that's actually what would have happened anyway. So it's a lot of this stuff was almost superfluous. It wasn't necessary. It was it was it was unnecessary. It wasn't necessarily additive, but it provided for some beautiful visuals. But it was just that's and again I
yeah.
disagree.
Again, it's just so much of it is just clumsy.
Yeah,
Like even to your point about why would those files have been there? Like what? Why would this accountant have files about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with monetary? We're even told by McFarlane himself um, that the reason that Joe Sakic uh, does all this stuff, it works so hard, is all the pieces are relevant, and he's got access to every bit of data, and he does he manipulates them in such a way that everything looks legitimate. Maintaining that shell of legitimacy is a must. Information is gathered, organized, sanitized, carefully accounted for. An audit would show a clean legal operation.
mm,
Well, if somebody comes in to do an audit and there's a file that's got all this information, the file you gave Spawn, then guess what? You wouldn't have gotten away with it. So, it's, like what actually happens in the story contradicts what McFarlane is actually telling us. Unless that file was hidden away in some way, but that's not what's shown. He just opens a filing cabinet and takes it. So again, we're nitpicking. Um, Overall, the story's fun, and it's of its time, and it's of the '90s, and it's a little bit expositional, but it does have that fantastic McFarlane art. And if I'm critical at all of it, it's only because it could have been even better. Maybe Spawn didn't need to go through a period of time where the sales weren't so great, because the bones of the story are good. And I think McFarlane knows that he's not the most talented writer. That's why he's getting all these other writers to come in. That's why he didn't write every, issue of the 325 or whatever we're on run of Spawn, up to this point. So, credit where credit's due. The guy knows that other people probably do it a little better than he does, but it is interesting enough, and I'm definitely curious to find out what's happened. Like I said, I've read 23 already, and I can't remember. I may have read 24 also. So I'm reading a couple of issues ahead because I want to know what's happening. So that's what you want out of a comic ultimately, to want to feel compelled to keep reading and know what's happening.
Yeah, well, there's one good thing about McFarlane's writing is that even though, I mean, these criticisms here are, like I said, they're more criticisms of, I guess maybe form and maybe some unnecessary scenes, but again, because it's comic books, it's the type of medium that we can take pleasure in some. I don't mind having some scenes added just to get some great scenes, some great art.
Yeah.
And the narrative is easy to follow. It is fun. And I am genuinely curious. I mean, because often, even though I can, maybe some parts of the characterizations are a little bit maybe tropey, a little bit maybe cartoony at times, with the shit-eating grin on the bad guys, and it's very obvious who the good and bad people are. This does have an element. This feels like a comic book, and it feels like a lot of fun, and it's going to be. I'm really curious to see how this is going to evolve. I know I sound like a broken record, but and I'm even more curious when I think about the Spawn movie coming out, because I know McFarlane has, he wants more of a hands-on approach in terms, because he's directing it, is he not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
He's
And so,
directing.
and now I got to admit that if he's directing it with the type of sensibilities he brought to these earlier issues of Spawn that he wrote, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit concerned, right? Okay, in
Yeah. He's
terms of,
never. Yeah.
you
He's
know,
never directed. He's a producer on it. I think executive producer
yeah,
probably, and obviously so that gives him some control over the script.
yeah,
And he's also directed, and he's never directed anything before. So, but
yeah,
it's his property, it's his baby, and I
yeah,
will say this. I will say this: if it's not a good movie, it won't be he because Todd didn't care or Todd didn't pour his heart and soul into it.
I agree
This
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to work his tail off to try to make it good, and any failings will just be, lack of experience. So, I hope he has an assistant director or somebody there to, who has experience, and I'm sure he will, because he's a smart enough guy to know where his shortcomings may be, that might help smooth over any rough edges. So I'm excited. I mean, Jamie Foxx as Al Simmons, it could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely go see it.
Yeah, no, well, fingers crossed, because I'm definitely gonna go see it, and it's gonna be because by the time that movie comes out, you and I are gonna be Spawn experts for sure,
Yeah,
and so it's gonna be really interesting to see if, because especially if he's gonna be doing the layouts of the scenes and everything. It's always interesting. I love when I go to a movie. Those of us who read comics and go to the comic book superhero movies, I love when you have iconic scenes represented on the big screen, because it just, it's hard not to smile, because I feel rewarded for all those hours I have
yeah,
reading comics, to say, oh my god, that was in a comic, I saw that scene in a comic.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. It's like, I saw that shit eating grin in a comic.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, the exact issue panel. Yeah,
uh,
that's when it's really cool. So
uh,
yeah, like if we ever got a real Crisis on Infinite Earths movie with Superman holding Supergirl, from Crisis 7,
yeah,
the
oh
cover.
man,
That Seeing that on the big screen, like I
fingers
could die.
crossed
Yeah,
one day.
could die a happy man. So,
Yeah.
all right. Anything else to add about 22 before we wrap it up, Rocky?
No, I think we said it all. Looking forward to reviewing the next issue.
Yep, definitely. So we appreciate you guys joining us as always. Don't forget, if you're listening to us audio only, head over to YouTube, do a search for Rocky's channel. It's Comic Space Boom ! Be sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell, like this video. All of that stuff really helps us with our reach and our access to different things, and it will help you know when Rocky puts out new content, because there's other stuff on his channel besides just Spawn Daily. Conversely, if you are checking us out on YouTube so you can see all the art as we're talking about it, we really appreciate that. But don't forget to go to your favorite podcasting platform or app and do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe to the audio only portion, so you don't miss out on any of our audio only content. So once again, really appreciate you guys joining us. Based on download numbers, you're really enjoying Spawn Daily. So we're glad you're all here to celebrate 30 years of Spawn with us, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
See you later.